open the meeting with a prayer.
Yes.
Father,
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Holy Father, we thank you for this evening. Thank you for this great city of Blanco. We pray that you will grant us all your graces, your blessings, and all the fruits and the gifts of the Holy Spirit, so that in our deliberations tonight we may see what the city truly needs, what her residents need, and to do what we can to foster your will on earth and your gospel in all things, so that by our efforts the whole world may come to know your will, and that we may exist together as one, always seeking your greater glory through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
God, both now lead us in a pledge.
Absolutely. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America, honor, Texas, one state under God, one nation. Thank you.
And I did that backwards, but I think it's good that was less before we even start. So now for the roll call, I'm here. Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Moore,
Present.
Councilmember Bobby Mack,
Present.
Councilmember Rodney Brokill.
Here.
Councilmember Grady Behrens, David Behrens. Councilmember Ryan Moses.
Present.
Presentation, the public comments.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
We have Wayne and Lightfoot. Is he here? I know he's here because I gave him my hug.
Y'all for having me, and good evening. On the matter of the bypass, I've stated in the past that I want to reaffirm that position, that I am against any bypass that intrudes upon the ETJ or the city limits of Blanco. The proposed routes, as I understand them, do not come across any land that I own or occupy, but I think it would be wrong to come through the ETJ and or the city limits. Thank you for your consideration.
Now, Open Corbett.
Feel bad again because I didn't get a hug.
Well, we'll have to work on that.
John here, like Wayne. I live at 133 Sunset Ridge. One of the two proposed routes is ran through my property. And as you, some of you may know, I run a B&B there. It's my retirement, and that would not exist at this point. So I just on the record for being opposed to it coming through the city, but also through the ETJ, because that's been approved when that development was brought up. I know in the last meeting I was here, the city council and mayor were going to write a note over to the tech stock, and I think we should write it. He's representing the city and saying we probably have to. Thank you.
Let's see. Jay Palmer.
Here, just to correct a notice that I read in the packet that I was subjecting to a letter to TechStop to basically represent what took place at the last meeting we talked about this subject. I'm not objecting because the wording was different than the original TechStop letter. I'm objecting because there was a misrepresentation of what actually took place at that meeting. And at that meeting, there was ultimately, there was quite a bit of argument back and forth, but ultimately, the council elected to send a letter to TxDOT letting them know that there was a unanimous decision to reaffirm the previous letter that was sent. However, the next day, that was modified somewhat to deliberately leave out the word reaffirm and leave out a unanimous decision. So I immediately called a newspaper reporter. There she is. To ask her how she recorded the meeting, and she said, yes, it was a unanimous vote, and it was to reaffirm a previous position. And then I called Laura Cassidy, asking her if she had the minutes of the meeting prepared, and she did, and they said the same thing, a unanimous vote, and it even listed each of the 5 members that voted in favor. So the reason I asked for the meeting in the first place was because TxDOT told me that they're getting mixed signals, they're getting mixed messages, and it's somewhat ambiguous when a council sends out a letter saying we're in favor of something, and various members of the council independently go and meet with TxDOT and say, not so much. So I would like to have the council decide, are they in favor of this or a new motion that I would hope would aggressively state their position, because their last 2 letters have been ignored completely. And I believe part of the reason for that ignoring is because the council sends out a letter, individual members say not so important, and in fact, some of them say come on through routes 3 or 4. So I'm just here to say, can we get one voice speaking clear and submit to TxDOT that we are all unified in this idea of strong pushing back and saying, if you want bypass, bring a bypass, but don't bring it through the city. And don't bring it through the ETJ. Because if that bypass goes where they're recommending, it's like a Great Wall of China that comes flat half a mile off of 281, and it blocks any further growth to the east. Thank you very much.
Libby Alley, who survived another, the 20th annual Lavender.
20th annual, yeah. I just wanted to extend my big thanks on behalf of myself and my board to the city staff, and from our Blanco looked beautiful. All the things we talked about were taken care of. We really put a nice shine on and showed our visitors what a beautiful little town this is. Special thanks to our Blanco Police Department, who are amazing, our EMS and Fire Department. All were really great partners this year. Jerry and I are going to get together and talk about a few little things that we need to shore up. Special thanks to those city staff volunteers. It was really a lovely thing for our visitors to get off the shuttle bus coming from the high school and be greeted by our mayor, be greeted by our city secretary, to buy a t-shirt from our city administrator, a token from his wife, and have a council person grill Hill pour him a cold beer. It was really, really nice to have.
Thank you, Sarah.
That too, yes, indeed. Although he's not wearing that hat down in the park, right? Blue shoes in the park, not his council. But in terms of attracting new visitors to Blanco, I just did a quick and dirty little search. We have 18,000 followers on the festival's Facebook page and 1,000 views of our page just the week of the festival. Thank goodness all those people didn't come, but they're looking and they're seeing, and if they don't come this weekend for that, they're coming hopefully another time. They had close to 400,000 views on our page in the month. That 100,000 just the week to it. So on our Instagram, we did a little short, real cheap, $200 for some ad stuff that my daughter did because that's her business. We had reached 118,000 people, and that $200, I think we're 6% per engagement, which is a really good return on investment. So anyway, as if Blanco Lavender Festival hadn't already made Blanco a known place, it sure is. We heard from so many visitors what a great little town this is, how beautiful it was, how nice everybody is. And so I just want to thank you guys for being a part of that. And, for the record, a thank you to our community that I know it's taxing on them. I also know it brings in some of those organizations some good money. $20 parking lots, people hung their shingle out and park in their yard. So it's bringing in a good trickle of money over the weekend. One little thing I would like to bring up, however, is Thursday evening, you all voted at the May council meeting to give me those streets at 5 o'clock. And, the police were right behind that 5 o'clock mark by about 3 minutes, just in time for lots of cars to pull onto the square. Some unfortunately were the vehicles of our council members and people attending a meeting that had been scheduled for 4 o'clock in this building. So, in the future, I would just like to request maybe if you do hold a meeting, maybe park out there. Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, and concur. I will say one of the most heartwarming things I heard, because the police officers work just right by the shuttle. And either visitors or citizens or vendors would come up and thank them for being there, tell them what a wonderful job they were doing, and say, okay, go over to the lobster thing. We bought you some food over there. We bought you some food at the 300. We bought you some food. They were feeding those boys all day long. And I never heard one angry voice. Everybody was in a good mood there. So thank you. I mean, that is a tribute to you. And she was running around like a crazy person.
Yeah.
Mike Etheridge.
Most of you already know me. Yeah, that's bypass. That property, will ever ruin our property. They put the bypass to it. Got into it. They're not paying for 111 years. And just got to done all historical stuff off. Send to the state. And we trying to get America together. Have it on our side. Then they came on all of it. Agreed. The decision got to be made. You can't be on this little crap, bees. Separate. I haven't been in a meeting for quite a while. I thought it was all straightened out down here in room and stuff. But it's changed. But I agree with the Jay. Somebody needs to make a decision, write a letter, just get it clear. There's too much just talking, not enough doing. Thank you.
Camille Haas.
I am Camille Haas, 3 minutes to work hard for me, just saying. So a couple of things. First of all, wearing my TPAC hat, working with text for documenting. We're documenting TxDOT, for TxDOT and for the county historical. We've gotten over 900 entries documented for the county of Blanco historically. It's been sent to TxDOT. We still get calls on it and stuff like that. And it has, for the bypass, it's proved confusing for TxDOT kind of Twin Sisters, because my Twin Sisters hat on now, that is now declared as a World Historic Landscape down there. And so they can't just plow through as they were choosing to do. They have to work with us at this point to figure out something down there, which slows down everything else for coming up here. And plus they're running out of money for bypass stuff at the moment. They'll get it again, but right now that's kind of where we're at. I'm working right now trying to document more Pittsburgh. There's a lot of Pittsburgh stuff over there. Like I found documentation working with the state of Texas that was the first black slave properties down in there. Well, that's important for the history of Texas and for Blanco. So that's my hat on that right quick. I can go into that more, but that's what it is. But I went to the Texas Historical Commission conference. I brought back a whole lot of information. Some were doing some, but like they have a lot of free things that we can be promoting this community with that does not cost us a penny. And one is the Texas Archives, or They do free digitations of like home movies, etc. They want those because it tells a story about what they wore back in the 70s, what they wore back in the 60s, what they tried, what did the buildings look like. So they come in, they do come in here, you can actually do it free of charge. They set up a time to do that. The other thing is the History Harvest, which is really exciting. It's from the Humanities Texas. They do the same thing. They come in your community, they scan it, they digitize it, photos, letters, documents, newspapers. It is then recorded in the state of Texas, and anybody can have access to it, as well as you have your own disk drive to be able to hold on to that. That's huge. They also have a traveling Smithsonian Museum that they bring into communities. That is tourism. That is money right there. That's no cost to us. The Texas Portal to History is really big. That is an University in West Texas, and it actually works with the Texas Historical Commission. If you Google looking for history, the Texas is huge. It's all over Texas. It's history. There's grants out there, and I've asked the library to help partner with us so we can document and digitize the history we have for people to have. And our county historical commission, which I'm the chair of that, has kicked in. We're kicking in $1,000 toward that as well to digitize. They will actually take it and digitize it. So anybody in Texas, we won't lose that. If I guess it's the one thing, Libby does it. It's money coming into Blanco. It's Texas Trail Region, and I think she said they're actually coming to Blanco to meet. But it's 19 Hill Country counties. People, this is advertised in a padlock and a brochure. We're in there, but very little bit in there. It's what Libby has put in there. This tourism brings in 2023, brought in $22.1 billion for Texas for economic impact, for direct travel and stuff. So there's a lot. That's a quick report.
Bill, to you. Boy, then they're gonna talk to you.
Well, first off, I'd like to say that I was at this point, I didn't win a seat on this council. But I think a lot of candidates did win, are very great candidates, and I know you're going to do a wonderful job. Particular congratulations to Mayor Gargill for the whole landslide victory. That's right. There's a lot to say, essentially, prove the agenda. Everything on the other first. Particularly, I wanted to comment on the planning, zoning, and sport commission. Their terms have ended. They end after 2 years on an odd year. But if they want to continue serving, then maybe you've done a great job, and I think it should be reappointed if they want to continue. And let's see, Tim is stepping down as chair of the feedback committee, and Philip Welch is being asked to operate, become chair, and I think approval of his nomination is also as well. The only other thing I want to mention is that every month, for as long as I've been attending these meetings, we get a monthly report from City Hall and finance director, the police department, and this month there's some comments from our city attorney. What I never see are monthly reports from our utility department. I never see anything. They never come here. They never tell us what's going on with utilities. They never tell us how many leaks we have, how many they repaired. They never tell us what the water treatment plant condition is, when it will go online, what are the delays, when are the pumps going to show up, the new pumps that I didn't even know were out. It was supposed to have gone online last December. How did then I find out, okay, I've got 2 more pumps that are going out. I never heard this stuff. I never knew that we spent $500,000 last year repairing leaks. I never knew that any of these things, they never got reported. So I think that it's just appropriate that they should be here and be able to answer questions from the council on all of these items. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, now presentation, City Hall. Right? No, excuse me, I skipped one. How about the general land office? Sorry about that.
That's okay. Good evening, leaders, council members, and hard-working city staff, and friends of Blanco. Good evening. I'm here with Blanco Community Management Services. I'm Sherry Conrado, and I'm here to publicly announce the award of the $300,000 grant with no match to community for a new updated comprehensive plan focused on resiliency. This is a grant from the General Land Office. There was $100 million allocated to rural Texas communities, and we were able to justify the full $300,000 for the city of Blanco. And I'm going to share just a few of those highlights to the plan that we were able to justify the full funding and tell you what's coming up. So just for a moment here, I'll tell you about Langford Community Management Services. We'll be administering the grant and working with you on the project. Judy Langford is the owner, has been in the grant world for 40 years, so she brings a wealth of knowledge, not only for this Resilient Communities Plan, but for potential funding for future projects. As I mentioned, I'm Jerry Conrado. I'm your Community Engagement Manager, so over the next 3 years, you'll be seeing me from time to time. And I'd like to say a big special double thanks to Laurie and Warren for helping walk through the application phase. It's quite a bit of paperwork to get awarded the grant, but I'll be making sure that all the requirements are met with the General Land Office and everything's on track there. We have our chief planner is Tim Jenkins. Tim has a wealth of experience working with communities that are in high growth and overflow areas like from Austin City area, like Round Rock, Hutto, and places like that. Dennis Koo is our senior engineer who has worked for the General Land Office in many, many communities with infrastructure and looking at all the base studies like water, stormwater, population, housing, all the inside pieces of the plan. We'll also be working closely with Brandon Melland, who is a city expert of your choice, and the city engineers here to make sure we're covering all the bases. We have a couple of new employees that are fresh out of college with a lot of great experience that will be helping out as well, Frank Broussard and Celeste Alvarez. We combined over 125 years of experience, and that with your key stakeholders who are acting as representatives and the core planning team, we've got a lot of experience we'll be applying to the plan. Go ahead. We have 30 months to complete the plan. However, we feel very confident within 16 to 19 months, we'll have this plan in order. The city council members will be oversight on the plan and will ultimately be responsible for approving the plan, the zoning ordinances, and everything that goes along with it. The community has a lot of existing plans that we're going to consider. One of the nice things about the grant is it doesn't leave anything uncovered that you've already done. So we want to make sure we're covering everything from the hazard mitigation plan for the county into all your local studies, plans, things you've already completed. Go ahead and move forward. The elements of the plan are based on the FEMA preferred categories. So land use and future development is a key element, guiding future growth, looking ahead for population 10 years and for housing 20 years. Transportation, all the streets, all the conditions, everything in the community. Housing, I mentioned, public facilities, community facilities, medical, school, library, all of your services in the community. Infrastructure, A to Z. We want to make sure this plan is included in this plan are all your base elements so that for the future, long after the grant closes, you'll have a document that's great for new development, looking ahead if someone knocks on your door and is interested in looking at the community. and a number of different areas as well, including economic development. That includes your downtown area, natural resources and protecting those resources, and your rich historical references to your properties and cultural resources. Okay. So taking all that into play and coming up with goals and objectives for all of these elements of the plan, and with a capital improvements plan and zoning ordinance will come out of this as well. So we will have a very good foundation to work from, and it goes out for 20 years. Go ahead. Another element that was a key factor in granting the full 300,000, we'll be mapping and layering all the elements of this plan so that it's not just a file that's put in a PDF format and stored on a shelf. It'll be a living document that you can utilize for your critical facilities, your structure inventory, all your drainage systems, everything in the community. So it's a very new type of plan, living document. And this is very, very exciting. We have an online engagement portal that can be viewed 24/7, ultimately by the community at large and long after the grant closes, with interactive mapping capabilities, things that you can look at any time and see what's going on the plan. If it's updated or changed along the way, we can keep up with all that. In the beginning, the key stakeholders will be assisting us with the interactive mapping, comments, and so forth. And it's got a lot of features like the charrettes and things like that that we can use for engagement. And we'll be rolling it out to the community to participate, which is a really big piece of how we were able to justify is we do way more community engagement than typically required, which was only 3 public meetings, tonight being the first. So we're very excited about that, and also working with Elizabeth Baruso, another expert of the community, is looking forward to visioning and really branding, amplifying the brand. And finally, I have developed a community engagement portal. One of the things we frequently hear is, how do we get everybody included and hear the voice of everyone in the community? And we find that with a strategic promotional marketing campaign, we can put a poster in the library with a QR code that people can look at and get the plan on their phone and see what's going on. They can look at the timelines. We have scheduled press releases, not only for our experts and newsletters, but wherever we want to get word out about festivals, about things going on as we work through this plan. Facebook, social media, posts, so it's all pre-developed. We can change it and tweak it a little bit, but it's ready to go. We don't have to stop and think about it every time we want to promote something, with a QR code and then a link for planning and Lakeville RCP while it's in the works, and then we'll transfer that over to the board. So that is what we're working on, and we kicked it off today with about 10 key stakeholders, maybe a few more actually, that volunteered to come in and assist with this. Do we have any of those key stakeholders in the audience? Thank you. We appreciate your time and your volunteer to work with us, and we'll look forward to rolling it out. Are there any questions or comments? Are you excited?
Yes.
I already have it on my iPad.
Good. Yes, and as I mentioned, it'll be planning at first, then we'll roll it out so everyone can access it at any time. Great. Any questions or comments? Thank you all very much. We look forward to working with you. Thank you. Look out for that. I'd love to take.
Now, Warren. City Hall.
Okay, let me,
Excuse me, right this. City.
technology is always about learning. Maybe I'm not gonna learn right now, but hold on here. Yeah.
We've been having technical issues in the one today.
Yeah, I'll blame it on them. So one of the comprehensive plan already stole my thunder, but as you know, $100,000 Resilient Communities Grant Award, at key stakeholder meeting tonight. The great thing about this is going to be a project that's going to work in concert with also our UDC, the rewrite of that. One of the things that Jerry had mentioned that I'm going to talk about a little bit more is that in that $300,000 grant, there's a little bit of a carve out to do the UDC, and that is going to help us because our Uniform Development Code, which is a part of our zoning, is lacking. So this will actually be really helpful. UDC in a comprehensive plan will go hand in hand, and to have a UDC, you actually have a comprehensive plan. So that's actually really helpful. We are going to be starting the 26 budget. Staff's already been dealing with it. I've been bugging different department heads, getting their ideas on things, and then I'll start talking to you about it. You'll get your first look at the budget on July 3rd, and then the first budget workshop will be on July 8th at 3 o'clock. So that's kind of the update on the budget. Tonight, you're going to hear the CIP presentation. You'll hopefully adopt that next month. That's all part of the plan, and that's also going to be part of the comprehensive plan as well. So those are the main things that are going on. The other thing I want to mention that I didn't put on the slides, you may have noticed that this weekend there had been PEC that come in, was trimming trees, and I want to mention something. Sometimes they do it, and sometimes they have contractors that do it. And apparently, some of the contractors, the crew that came in this weekend, did not follow the proper protocol. We're trimming without doing the sealant. With some of the oaks that we have that are 200 years old. So a couple of things. I had a discussion with several people at PEC, and there's a window in which you're supposed to do this work, which is the preferable time, which is, I understand, is between October and about December or January of the year. And then the time you don't want to do it is between February and the end of June, which obviously they're doing it in June. So I did talk to one of their supervisors. They are removing their crews. They are getting them out of town. The only thing is on June 18th and on the skeet, they're going to do just a little bit of work, do some sealant and some stuff on a private property, but they're not doing any more cutting, and they will fix the issues that have been created. Again, I'm not an expert on this, but I do understand that this is out of the window doing it, and then they'll come back in July, which will be out of this bad window, or whatever you want to call the window in which oak wilt is more prevalent. Again, I'm not an expert, or try to pretend to be, but my understanding is they are working with us. What I think we'll need to do is, as a community, talk to them in the future about when they do it. Now, I get there's so much work PEC has to do, and some trimming they have to do, and it's hard for them to do it all within a certain window. But this community and our oaks are worth it, and I think they are willing to work with us. But that is the update on, if you've seen some PEC trucks, they will be gone for another few weeks.
Yeah, the normal supervisor was not with the team. The normal supervisor knows me very well, because when they pull us in front of my office, I am on there like white on rice.
Well, they had, no supervisor wasn't there. I think they had some different crew.
Yeah, they had no supervisor with him, but they will have a man that will be with them on the 18th. Yeah.
That's it.
And take care of our trees.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Evening, Mayor, council members, yeah. It's my monthly report. We're looking at through the month of May. Most of the revenues and expenditures seem to be in line. We're 8 months through the year. Two items are a little bit higher than it should be. Again, we're looking into these those. Probably if we have to make any budget adjustments, so we received about 95% of the ad valorem tax money already in the county. Money's still coming in, but it's not a whole lot. So we've got the majority of that. The last check that came in last week was 27,000. So it's getting much smaller. Most of the focus again we're going to be on the general plan. Revenue 73% overall, and that's right about where we need to be. We should be around 75%, but 73. That's good. Sales tax revenue is doing really good, 72%. Our franchise fees and our right of way doing really well, 102%. So that's good. Anything that we make beyond here is great. Expenditures, that's where most of the time we spend here. 57% overall, which is really good compared to that threshold of 75%. Administration overall, 64%. Again, we're in line. We had one account go over, which was education and training support for us to make sure that we're getting what we get. We're moving forward. What's going on? Police, 53% overall. Again, doing really well. Most of the PD has to do with employee vacancies. Been pretty much understaffed for a lot of the year. Salaries, wages, benefits. OT is a little bit over, but again, being understaffed, got to work a little bit of overtime. But they offset each other, so we're just fine. And I will be chief for both staff. So we're fully staffed, so that's great. Court parks, streets, and non-departmental. Again, that is way below that, about 55%. Just looking at some of the detail, I know I look at everything, but just some of the detail. Computer, you look at our computer expense, computer software updates, and we're over budget. But we did have the upgrade for our accounting system, our billing, and our cooking system. See that be okay. The next budget year, we'll look at that.
Is it like that, the computer equipment, software update?
Yes, absolutely. So, now we did change our IT vendor midstream, so we did have a little bit of overlap. So that should go away next year as well. Our new vendor in this area did a great job. They've done a great job for police. They've stopped some cyber attacks that were out there, so we're doing very well.
Jose, we got a grant, I think we got a grant to offset some of that cost from DC3.
It's in process.
It's in process, so we've got what's the grant, 12,000?
20,000.
20,000. It's in the works. Our secretaries working hard in DC3 trying to get that money. We're always looking for grants. We're always.
I talked to the state today. I was like, oh.
Yeah, and she's been working diligently. I see her. She's on the phone a lot with DC3. Yeah, so she's working hard. We appreciate it. Police expenses. Again, being understaffed now that we've got a full staff, we've got a beautiful employment costs. So those are all a little bit higher than we're likely to be. But as we go forward, again, we'll be fully staffed and be able to plan for that. Overtime, again, we're just talking about that. It's going to be a little bit high. The good thing is that the salaries overall is low because we had a lot of vacancies throughout the year. Parks and streets, Town Creek retaining wall, we talked about that. Talked about that before. And a little bit of cost. It's 254% over budget, but the budget was not very good. So, yeah, we're moving to do a little bit more work, and we'll address that in the budget process this year. Real and personal property insurance is a little bit high. Again, not sure if that was a budget issue that they had happened last year, but we're looking at correcting that this year. And lastly, the enterprise fund, one people plant construction upgrade, is a little over. And really, the big area is professional fees, but it was our Dura, now we've changed and we're using Schomburg and Colbert. So now audit update, we've got a couple of things, audit and budget. Audit, working Pro Global, there are auditors. They plan on having the completed budget hopefully by the end of June, which this week, talk to the auditors. I'm getting weekly updates from the auditors. So this week I'm back to the auditors. The partners reviewing audit financials. She'll have some questions, and those are going to trickle down to Warren and myself. But I'm answering questions almost every day from the auditors. And lastly is the budget. As Warren mentioned, we just started the budget. PD and administration are both looking at their expenditure for the upcoming year. The thought process is that we're going to try to hold on. Status quo. We know there's some things that we've got to do. PD's got some things that we're looking at. But we're going to try to keep that budget where we were last year. We'll do our best. So, we've got some things that we're working on. But again, we'll get more information. Any questions?
Yeah, just a couple quick ones. So you mentioned that 75% is kind of our target just based on the timing right now.
Sure.
And enterprise is at the expense side at 87%. So are we expecting that trend to continue on for the last few months of this budget cycle, or there's some?
That's probably a more question. I don't foresee us getting, I mean, it's probably heading that way. We're going to try to meet the 100% and not go over.
Yeah.
And that just depends on if it's happening.
Is there anything specific that's causing that?
Just the
water plant.
Yeah, the water. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's 75% right there, a bit low for the revenue side. Yeah. 4 months left, not
Yeah.
3.
That's what I was thinking too. And then the flip one, so the general fund, we're at 57%. Are there any expected expenditures that we thought were going to happen before now that hasn't, that we'll expect in the last few months? Or are we expecting to come in under?
I'm thinking we're going to come in. We're if we don't have to spend the money, we're not. We're not doing that. We're going to do our best to say. Again, knowing that we've got some issues with your funds, hopefully upping under in the general fund will allow us to, at the end, we'll be where we
And if I can add, and Jose did a great job. The numbers you see, I would kind of project them out. I think you're going to have a general fund where we come under budget. A lot of that's because we weren't fully staffed. That's probably where it is. I really think, unfortunately, the enterprise, we're at where we're at for this year. There'll be some choices that need to be made for next year, but I think we'll take a loss on the enterprise, 100%, part of 150,000. So, if you put everything together, it probably break even, but I think you're gonna come in under on general fund, but I think the enterprise, which you get is that we can't escape for this year. So that's where we're at.
Keith Thornton.
Good evening. During the month of May, the Washington Police Department responded to 486 calls for service, which is up 20% from April. possibly for horizon traffic related issues. We conducted 195 traffic stops and 26 citations and 109 warnings. We received 22 complaints about reckless driving incidents, which we investigated, and we had 2 motor vehicle accidents this month, which was down 79% from April. Arrest activity included 2 on-site arrests and 2 warrant arrests. From the policy standpoint, we implemented mandatory updates and changes to our current policy due to House Bill, Senate Bill 1445, which addresses office for misconduct, hiring procedures and practices, professional files, and medical evaluation. So we're in full compliance with that now. Staffing remains steady at 10. That includes our admin staff. However, our fleet is still challenged because we still have 3 new staff.
You down the rent, okay, places to rent vehicles,
Not the rent, it's a lease.
lease purchase.
Lease the purchase program. Because I've had one leasing program and they told us we gotta have no more.
That should be nice.
That would be nice, but I'm trying to stay with the dreams. So I am looking at repairing one control now, and that would give me 5 minutes time off. That still puts me down too, which is where I really need to be.
What has those students on surplus?
Questions?
Please pass on the information. Please, there's good point. You did such a wonderful job at Lavender Fest.
I'm sure they're all sunburned
And they, I mean, I know I was talking to Wayne, he was pulling, he was at 18 hours when I was talking to him. And he was still making sense. So, I'm talking to you, thanks, Mary.
That's close. Thank you.
Yeah, this is, and we're going to have a legal update.
Legal advice, just a little update. Mayor, council, members of the public, citizens, this is a first read of the legislative session that just ended about a week ago. Caveat, I'm still in process of reviewing everything that happened over there in the Pink Granite building. So there may be supplements that we're going to do as we go along. Other caveat is I've given all of you a little handout. It's not made public, to make sure it is made public. I have been speaking about, I have a couple extra copies, but I can bring them out to everybody and bring it on. First, before I get into that sheet I handed you, I wanted to highlight the fact that we all expected this session to be the biggest water session in the history of the state of Texas, and in fact, it was. In 2023, in that session, the legislature formed the Texas Water Fund and put $1 billion into it. This session, they passed House Joint Resolution 7, which is up for a vote in November, by the way. I hope everyone votes for it. What it will do if it passes is provide for $1 billion a year for 20 years in that water fund. And that is in proportion to what the state has done so far, that's a big deal. A really big deal. Those funds, as they go in, will be allocated by the Texas Water Development Board. As you know, the city's been a beneficiary of those funds in the past, and I fully expect it will be in the future. In addition, all that money is going to go 50% to focus development of new water supplies, and the other 50% is going to go to traditional programs, agricultural water conservation, wastewater, flood mitigation, all the things that have been doing in the past. So 50% of that 20 billion is going to develop new water sources. new locations, transport of water, desal, all kinds of things that are on the horizon. Now, in addition to that, legislature passed SB 7, which expands the eligibility of funding opportunities of that money to include a real focus on water reuse. So the emphasis on wastewater, reclamation, basically, and you see it already popping up at Liberty Hill, Marble Falls, Kerrville. They're all going to these wastewater treatment facilities. They're going immediately to type 1 for potable, edible vegetables, and all the way into potentially potable water, drinkable water. So that's on the horizon, coming fast. In addition, under SB 7, the legislature authorized another 2.5 billion in the current biennium to go into the Texas Water Fund. So you get, if you vote for everything in November, you get $1 billion a year for 20, and in this biennium, you got another 2.5 billion. Those funds are going to be broken out mostly to earmarked projects that are identified in a bill, and 1 billion for new projects selected by Texas Water Development Board. So you all have a relationship now with an engineer that helps you in the PIF notations every year. And I imagine that you're going to want to really get loaded up on that as you focus on water and wastewater for this community. So more to come on that, but that's the big deal of this legislative session. The items that are on the handout, I'm going to describe that very briefly. Some of them are affect matters that are currently in controversy. I'm not going to get into legal advice and legal analysis, but I'll tell you about these things. Some of them are not. Some of them are innocuous. But there's, I think, 8 bills here I'm going to highlight. 3 of them have already been signed by the governor, and they will go into effect on September 1st. The 3 that are going to go into effect immediately are SB 1851, that says if the city is not up to date on its annual audits, thank goodness we are. But if you're not up to date on your annual audits, you are limited to only passing tax rate, which is your revenue tax rate. You cannot go above that. Secondly, SB 1844, a very important bill. It changes the current disannexation statute to provide that for lack of services, specifically water and wastewater, all previously annexed property owners of 1 or more lots, tracts, parcels, or portion thereof are allowed to file a petition, have a 60-day notice, and potentially, subject to contest from the city, potentially obtain a court order of disannexation. The other one that's going to go into effect immediately on September 1 is SB 1173, which raises the competitive purchasing threshold of the Purchasing Act from 50,000 to 100,000. So the others have been passed by the legislature or are pending the governor's signature, and we don't know. Doesn't veto them; they go into effect in late June automatically. He vetoes them. We don't know yet. Obviously, they don't know. But let me summarize these very quickly. All of them have a potential impact on the city. First, no city is allowed any further on the basis of city ordinance, not other law, but on city ordinance cannot pass a permitting regime to prohibit, quote, no impact home-based businesses. Of course, we know with COVID, the aftermath of COVID, lots of people start their home businesses in their homes. And if you have no impact on parking, no crowding, nothing visible in the exterior that's a problem, it's defined term in the legislation of what a no impact home business. And of course, you're subject to outside professional licensing if that's relevant to the business. But that's not a matter of city ordinance. The impact fees. This relates to the ultimate adoption of a capital improvement plan. You'll hear more about tonight. but they've extended and expanded legislature, all the requirements to impose impact fees, and you can't increase them, but for every 3 years. Another very significant legislation, SB 840, cities must allow mixed-use residential or multifamily conversion in areas zoned for office, commercial, retail, and warehouse. Pretty big deal, especially in some of the larger cities. That's a hotly contested item, but it passed the legislature. And I suspect the governor's going to pass it, but the policy behind it is the housing shortage in the city, or the perceived housing shortage in the city. HB 1522, Lori loves this one. I do too. Instead of 72 hours prior to a meeting, you have to do 3 business days notice before a public meeting. So some folks that I work with that have their public meetings on Monday, so they're going to have to post their agenda on Tuesday night, which is quite interesting. Well, we plan that, pretty tough. In addition, your budget meeting, you're going to have to post comparative data to the household examples. $300,000 home, here's what the budget's going to do to your tax bill with specifics. And then finally, and this is relevant to us because of the water situation, or may be relevant to us, HB 2559. This expands the notice and hearing requirements and limits the term of any municipal ordinance moratorium on the extension of city services. So for example, right down the street here in Dripping Springs, they did a big moratorium hearing. I've heard about it on wastewater connections. They have a big problem with all the development they've allowed and started running out of capacity for wastewater. But I think their situation, the rumor mill is that situation and a couple other situations like that across the state were the impetus to this bill. It sets the maximum term for moratorium to 180 days, 2 public hearings before you oppose it, a lot of hoops to jump through before a moratorium can be put in place by action of the city council. There may be other laws and regulations that cause a moratorium, but we're talking now about city action. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm here and I'll be here after the meeting.
Thank you, Mr.
Wonderful, thanks.
Okay. Consent agenda. The approval of minutes from May 13th regular meeting.
Separate these out, have the different consent agendas.
Something off the consent.
Well, yeah, so like on the bond oversight committee. So if they're together, I'll have to abstain from both.
Gotcha.
Madam Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the minutes and pull the second item.
Second that motion.
All in favor? Sorry. Approval of the minutes.
And we removed the bond committee.
Yeah, we're just approving the minutes. Yeah. So. These meetings on May 13th. I believe we have that meeting, so it's not on my phone. So if there are no corrections or additions, it's been approved.
Summary.
So you're gonna move the approval to dissolve bond to new business number 11.
Whatever you want.
New business number 11.
Okay.
So new business number 1 will be consideration, discussion, and take possible actions on approval of appeal of sign permit that was denied from applicant John Rigger, Red Bud Cafe.
I'll explain this.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor, Council, citizens. So this is an appeal of a sign permit at Red Bud, and the new sign permit, the new sign ordinance allows for 2 hanging signs. I'll get to it in a minute. 2 hanging signs at a property, and they have 4. So rather than do a variance for signage, due to time constraints and also to the fact that this was simultaneously going to HPC, Historic Preservation Commission, for a certificate of appropriateness, what administration did was deny the application for 4 signs and say it would be 2. It then went for a COA, which was for both the sign and all the signage here seen, and they approved the COA. So what this then went to the Planning Commission, P&Z, for review of this denial of the permit, and they're recommending to you, I don't know if I put that in there. So the appeal sign permit was denied by the applicant, and the recommendation from P&Z is the approval of an appeal to allow 4 hanging signs rather than the 2 allowed hanging signs per building. Staff does not have an issue with this override. So, do you have questions of staff, or do you have questions of the applicant? I think it's here. So, and that's Brandon.
do you want to come first about it?
Sure.
Sure.
So obviously I do the way the sign ordinance is written, but we started by putting 2 on there, and then we put 2 up before, or then we put 4 up. The 4 just look better. So we're going to put in for variance, and the timeline on that was going to stretch out quite a bit longer. And Ward said this is a small thing. It's probably something that should just go to council and P&Z and see what else thought would be. So we went about it that direction, passed through P&Z, passed through getting a COA. We just feel like with the amount of space that covers this is more appropriate. Thoughts?
Your business facades is obviously a lot longer than other business facades on the square.
And to be fair, the way we wrote the sign ordinance was we wanted to simplify it, but give the latitude to businesses to appeal and do variances and all that stuff. If they have an idea that was outside the scope that we thought of, then to me, this kind of fit that space.
So you're a test case for your own.
Essentially, not on purpose, it does.
No, I think it's like it. So, you know, here, thank you.
I'll move that we approve the item number 1, approval of the appeal of the sign permit for Red Bud Cafe.
And do I have a secure second?
Happy second.
Rodney, second, all in favor? I'm done. I'm just confused with it.
Thank you.
Motion carries. And so item number 2, consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of planning and zoning commission. Okay. Planning and zoning commissioners, you want to do this planning and zoning?
If you, I can come back with their.
You can come back up here. Come on, we want.
I feel like we've got a great group to continue working with them. You all have it. So we had different commissions throughout time, but didn't have appropriate numbers. I think we really got a solid committed group that really been productive and wanting to work together. Very good.
And all the seats are filled.
All the seats are filled.
And we always have quorum, so that's.
We don't have that issue.
Make a motion to receive the planning and zoning
All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously.
Well, thank you.
Okay, number 3, consideration and discussion and take possible action on approval of Blanco Historic Preservation Commissioners. Plus, their new one, Beth Andrews. Do you want to speak on this one at all? Warren, does anyone speak or do you speak?
The chair is in the audience. I see her. Heidi.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
She's tiny.
So we struggle to make one, a lot. So the many commissioners would be great, but up to 6 at this point. Whatever you do, I'll get back.
And y'all approved Beth Andrews, right? And so this will be approving the entire.
So then I don't have one vacancy.
Including Beth Ann.
Does anybody want to volunteer while I'm over?
Yes, from the audience.
Do I hear a motion? Any questions?
I'll move, yeah, I'll move that we approve the Blanco Historic Preservation Commissioners as commissioner of that.
Do I hear a second? All in seconds. All in favor? All in favor? Passes unanimously. Okay. Moving right into consideration, discussion, and take possible action on the approval to install signs as needed to enforce the Jack Break ordinance.
All right, yeah, so we actually do have a Jake Brake ordinance over, that's, for the big 18-wheelers coming in, using a Jake brake or, their engine brake coming in. And so we actually have an ordinance on the book saying that that's not allowed, but we can't enforce it without the sign that's being put up. And so, so really what this is to, get approval to get the signs. And I know we have an example in here. There's some others I'm sure we can do in at towns and be going through them, but basically we just need to post a sign on the north end and the south end, I believe, right, Chief, is that?
And actually,
Yeah.
If I can speak real fast on this, I saw the, example y'all gave, and it must say by city ordinance on it, so
Yeah.
the sign has to indicate it is a city ordinance. as
Yeah,
well.
we probably have mark out, please.
Okay, we can, yeah, okay.
Be a little more forceful with it. Yeah, so we're not on the actual correct sign.
I'll send you one.
Yes, please.
Darn it. And thank you.
A truck ran it over.
Yes.
Yes, and I guess the only other thing, was, you know, Warren and the staff and, Chief did the research, so about $1,500. So again, obviously not in this year's budget, but we're close to next year's budget, or the next budget. So if need be, obviously we can push this to the next fiscal year. But wanted to go and present it to council for consideration to.
So do we want to table it for now, or do we want to pass it and approve it?
No.
For the future?
So Mayor, if I can,
Yeah,
why don't,
please.
if council wants to approve it now, if there's money in this year's budget, we'll do it. If we have to wait till October 1st, we can do that. But if you approve it now, we will look to see if we have anything in the budget.
Any chance you can use our funds? I mean, that might put that to bed if we don't have to listen.
I don't think so, but I can look at that.
We're budget on our election.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to pass it now? And if we have the funds?
I'll move to approve the installation of 2 Jake Brake ordinance signs. Get a sign show by.
The 2 signs will be not to.
Is that, are we
Are we sure about that amount? 1,500?
It's about 1,500. I mean, we haven't gone with the sign company yet, but it's about 1,500. I talked to people.
There aren't any mistakes. Oh, no, because we have ordinance.
Okay.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second, but I think I'd like to bump that up to at least 1,750, if not 2,000. If it ends up being $1,600, I'd hate for it to have to come back to the council.
Okay. 2,000.
You want to amend your motion?
Yes, I will amend to no more than 2,000.
And you will second
I would
that amendment. Okay. All in favor? Okay. 0, okay. I hope that works, and I know that we have to have police off it.
It's a different sign.
That was the first thing I was going, no, not police.
Very polite.
Okay, then it's consideration, discussion, and take possible action on the approval of the Blanco Celebration of Excellence and Feeding the City. This is something that I think about because I think we need to start celebrating the excellence of the people here in Blanco. And it just so happened that here at Lime and Green, their head distiller was inducted into the Whiskey Hall of Fame, being the first woman and the second Texan, I believe. And there's conflicting statements on that. But we had, I found a 2-foot ceremonial key that we could do in a presentation that for $136 we could use forever. And then a little plaque that was $33 that we could give to Marlene. And this is just the first of what I hope would be many of the Feeding City, because we have so many amazing people here. But there is a whole list of things that was done and what all. But Lime and Green is one of them. We have four distilleries in Blanco County, and it's really put us on the whiskey map, having real ale, real spirits, Andalusia, and Lime and Green. So that is, then this kind of starts off, and then I will let Brandon go on here again, because the chamber is working on some other things.
Yeah, so Kenny and I have been talking about this for a while, and from Key to the City standpoint, we think it's a nice gesture to people that make an extreme difference in milestone things. This, especially being inducted into Whiskey Hall of Fame, we should number 99 ever. But because we've got such great people here who like what they're doing at Lime Green and what they're doing at Andalusia and Real Ale, I mean, we are shifting our burial festival, and we're looking at doing Spirits of Blanco, which will include whiskey music and kind of focus a little bit more on the whiskey side of what we have to offer. We're also looking at, on the next legislation in the state, trying to get the state designation for whiskey capital of Texas. And even if we don't get that through, we're still looking at shifting some of our branding to really highlighting that piece of our community, because I think it's something that we've kind of missed. I mean, we've got this amazing thing that we do really well, better than almost any other place that I know of, like Kentucky. That's exciting, and so we wanted to highlight that. And with her getting back to the Hall of Fame, it's going to be a good time to talk about celebrating our achievements.
And we're on the Texas Whiskey Trail.
They are all part of the Texas Whiskey Trail. That is true. So, anyways, we've got a lot of exciting things, and it's one thing to be able to look at them. They're winning awards around the world. I mean, you've got distilleries that are winning world championships that are here in town, and if you're not paying attention to it, it's one of those things you don't really know about. But
Yeah, Marlene won this one, and then Evolution won the international award.
the world was.
Yeah.
I was just to add, I was at Milan Green a couple of weeks ago, and there was a very nice couple sitting down on the picnic tables that had driven to Blanco specifically for Milan Green. Came for an afternoon tasting.
I'm up there occasionally, and there are. Okay, I'm up there. And I've talked to these guys that they are coming from out of state. They are being the mules, and that they have the orders from all their friends. They leave there with cases. So it is really Mama Green's a big deal. So I would think it would, Marlene has moved, she was a distiller for Jim Beam and retired and came down to Blanco, lives in Rockin' J, and is a distiller now for Marlene Green. And I would like to be honored by the PBC. And I would like that to be always something that the council votes on. So, if we want to table it, that's fine, that I would like, I'll bring it back up.
Well, I will move that we initiate a program for Blanco, issuing Blanco keys to the city to worthy individuals and people who contribute to the community. And frankly, dignitaries around the world. I think it's great publicity for Blanco, and it's something our mayor should be doing. The first initiative or receiver of that, a vocabulary of that, Marlene. That was long-winded, Lori. I need to just restate.
To initiate the key to the city and the first receiver to be doing that one.
Yes.
And the program will also be initiated by a vote of the council.
Yes. Yeah, I think any kind of thing in the city would be initiated. I mean, I'm talking about if the Panthers win a state championship, we give them the key to the city.
Would that be 130 per capita?
There's one come to your house. Oh, and the big one, it's just the one that we keep that one here. And they have to give that one back.
That's the photo op.
Yeah, that's photo op.
They just give the little,
Yeah.
the $33.
Yeah. Economic. Okay.
Also,
No second. I have the second.
Okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? Passes. Thank you. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on the approval of pay increase for city prosecutor from $100 to $150 per hour. Kim, do not get scared. This is not you.
So this is our city prosecutor, Doug Montgomery. Our court clerk, Haley Hartman, says he's great. Judge Burns loves him. We only have court like every other month right now. And at the most, like once a month. And I think 150 is pretty reasonable for a prosecutor. He has his own company and he's very busy, and we would really hate to lose him because he's a really good prosecutor. He's very thorough. He's very fair with the residents, but also like very understanding of our ordinances, our laws. And the invoice that's attached is like for the whole year so far from January through the end of April. And our next court's not till July, but he brought it to us and staff is in favor of increasing it. And he said that if we don't have the money in the budget now, he's willing to wait for the next fiscal year. But whatever council decides.
That's a reasonable rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's only working a couple hours a month, it looks like.
Right. And like, some of it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He doesn't charge like, very conscientious with what he charges.
So it's a current expenditure of approximately 2,000, that would go up to 3,000.
Oh, yes.
But we think that that rate is commensurate with the industry.
Yes.
Lawyers.
I think 150 is probably still low.
Yeah.
Like we got into for steel at 100.
And it looks like he bills in 1/10 of an hour.
Right, right. Like,
I wish I had an attorney.
I know. Yeah.
And so just the impact of the budget for this year would be, we got how much?
We'll meet again in July. It's only gonna be a couple more months because we'll meet in July, probably not August. And then he might meet, they might have court like 2 more times this fiscal year. So from 100 to 150, it might be like a couple $100 this year.
Of additional, but
Right, over what we already have. And I would think court has the money in the budget to cover it, yeah.
No, what you said?
Yeah, court has
Yeah,
money.
he-
Yeah, court has money to cover it.
It's pretty, it's pretty responsible.
Any more discussion or just somebody? You want to move forward? Or did you say that he would start?
He said he would wait if there wasn't money in the budget.
You said that we have money in the budget.
That's what it's saying.
I don't.
but we've got money in the budget for it.
Okay, just make the motion.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
Unfortunately.
I'll say it.
Bobby, a second. Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Unanimous.
And then
Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of Ken Welch to chair the Transportation Planning and Advisory Committee. He has agreed to do that. I was at this meeting, and Dennis will remain, Dennis Jr. will, remain the, liaison. Is there any discussion on problems?
If all parties are agreeable, I'm happy.
And we did talk to Ken. Ken's not here tonight. He had a conflict, but both Ken and I spoke with him.
Yeah.
Very hard to when I spoke with him. Previously, he's accepts.
In that case, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to move that we approve Ken Welch as chair of the Transportation Planning and Advisory Committee.
Okay, so Rodney moved, do we have a second?
I'll say it.
Right. Brian second, all in favor? All in favor. Tracy, you were unanimous. Except Tracy.
I ignored your hand.
Okay, this is for discussion, no action only. For on review of 5-year street plan, SW.
So I'll introduce our actual speaker, who's from, I'm gonna say Ross Schmeling.
Close enough, Schmeling.
Well, with SPI, we asked them to do, a 5-year CIP plan. They ended up doing longer than that. we put together a very comprehensive 30-page deal that after reading it and my eyes swimming a little bit, I said, John, maybe if we could do a 3 or 4 page project and kind of, Reader's Digest version and just, here it is.
Well, Mayor, council members, thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be here presenting on the proposed capital improvement projects. But before I jump into that, I just want to acknowledge I wouldn't even be here presenting if the Capital Improvement and Asset Management Committee has not spent countless hours of volunteer time and putting this together to recommend a lot of these projects and sit through things before I ever came on the scene. So I just want to acknowledge that, and then just acknowledge you, council, and the citizens for taking in the information on the proposed bonds and being willing to vote in favor of those to fund it. So that we wouldn't even be here for that. So just wanted to start with that. But in my Reader's Digest version I have here for you, it's basically 3 pages. The first one is a map that just shows some of the projects that we've identified that are actual identified mappable projects. I limited the map to just ones that would be using future bond issuances. I'll mention shortly a few other projects that you've already funded with other things. But starting with this, for 5 years, we're proposing that you kind of launch your program. You won't see a lot of things in 2026 just because that's kind of a launch year to get planning on things. But one thing we're proposing is doing the only one that's mapped there is a little red. That is basically a wastewater line rehabilitation and lining that's kind of behind the Red Bud Cafe and 300 barbecue. And then starting really the bigger part of the plan in 2027, proposing doing street, water, and wastewater improvements. Get off to start on Pecan Street, a few blocks of that. And then we're also proposing in 2027, take the opportunity to rehabilitate the water tower and the water standpipe you have that had relatively recent inspections that show that it's still in good enough shape to rehabilitate it versus replace it. So we're recommending you kind of launch into the program with some good street utility improvements and those water improvements there for towers. And then over time, we recommend doing additional segments of Pecan Street in 2028, continuing street utility improvements, and then doing a wastewater rehabilitation kind of over between Greenlawn and Lazy Creek. We want to get that televised, but we'd be proposing what's called pipe bursting, where they basically go in, burst the pipe, pull a new pipe through. We're recommending you consider that for one of your first just wastewater projects. And then in the future, 2029, we're recommending doing street and utility improvements on Live Oak Street, which would include upsizing one of your wastewater lines that has a lot of flow, and is probably going to see more flow as your city expands, especially to the north there. We're working on that wastewater extension as we speak. And then in the future, we've got identified, we would like to get to doing Main Street water main, as well as 4th Street and Pecan right outside of here with water main. These are projects that you can see on the map. They're identified, and that's the first page here. The second page, I just listed out some projects that are either I didn't show on the map because they're different funding sources for the bond issues that would happen in the future. Or there are projects that we want to do that are more either planning or strategic. Or
out into the future then where we haven't identified exact projects, we're just allowing some funding that can be identified, the specifics to be identified. First on my list is the 2024 Texas Water Development Board TIP projects. These are already funded and they're may or may not move forward depending on what action y'all take, but you have an approved PIP. This is the 9th Street water main replacement, Cielo Springs water main replacement on the main road, Palomino water main replacement. Those are listed in your capital improvement plan simply because you already have funding that was approved. And since construction hasn't taken place, we need to show it in your plan, even though it's not related to bonds. Secondly, we don't show this on the map, but some of the other projects we're proposing in your plan, most of which we're either be doing right off the bat in 2026 or doing like an annual program. Our first, develop a water model. That's a one-time thing we'd be proposing in 2026. That's where you would hire us to basically create a model of your water and also your wastewater system so that we can plan where in the future you may need to upsize lines or as you develop, making sure we identify maybe certain lines that might need to be upsized when we're doing projects. These wastewater and water models help guide that. So it's kind of like a planning thing, but very important to do. Physical model? No, it's a computer model, so you can plug in scenarios of like if you develop this much over here, what we expect to see in your system to keep it serviceable. Like same with the wastewater. Next, which would be more of a strategic project, but very simple, is smoke testing your non-PVC wastewater pipes. What this would do is basically, and this sounds weird, but basically you put a certain kind of smoke into a wastewater line and you'll be able to see if there's like cracks in the pipe, you'll get smoke coming out the ground. And they don't just put like fire smoke, it's something specific that's safe. But I haven't actually seen this done before. I just know it's a good.
Do it around Halloween.
Yeah, right. But anyhow, we're recommending that because you can test a lot of pipes and find out where your problem areas are right off the bat. And it's relatively inexpensive. So that's one of those projects that's not on the map. Then the next one, which is somewhat related, is start a program of annual CCTV, so television inspection of your sewers, of the non-PVC sewers. Now, even though I just recommended smoke testing, we still recommend an annual program of televising because you need to evaluate the actual condition of, like, the smoke testing will tell you your really bad segments, but there's going to be a lot that are probably not going to show anything. So television inspection would allow us to evaluate over time, like which lines need to be actually fully replaced versus which lines could be lines. And lining is cheaper than replacing. And so it'd be a good planning tool. So we propose that. And then this next item, we propose inspecting a certain portion of your wastewater manholes every year. This has already been initially done, but this would be kind of continuing the practice because, yeah, it's relatively inexpensive to do and it will help us plan for future. Next on the list is a couple of other projects. One is what I call, a weird term, but install water and sewer valves. So I'm proposing that in, let's see, in 2026, work with your utility operating staff And we would propose putting in maybe like 8 to 10 strategic valves throughout the city, installing them in strategic locations so that as we do projects, we don't always have to shut down the whole city every time there's a problem. So even though those kind of valves are really expensive to go in and cut in while the line's active, it would be worth it to put maybe like 8 to 10 of them in strategic locations so that as we do this program, we're not shutting down massive areas of the city. And I have done some preliminary review with utility staff, and we do believe the 8 to 10 range is a reasonable number of valves. But that would be really important. And then another one is rehabilitating wastewater manholes. You already had them inspected, so we already know certain ones that need to be done. So we propose get moving on a program of annually allotting some money to do that. And then lastly, in terms of unmapped projects, is later in the 5-year plan, let's see, I basically put a placeholder to identify specifically in the future additional street and utility projects, those combined projects. And then also a little bit of money for if there happens to be, which I know there is, I just haven't identified them. You may want to do a few street only projects with some of your money from the future bonds and sale. So that's kind of an overview of just some of the proposed projects. This last sheet is just really shows you financially kind of 2 different snapshots of what this plan looks like. The first chart is basically your 5-year plan and then the remaining future, what we recommend annually for expenditures on street, water, and wastewater. That's individual year expenditures, not a cumulative. That's that first chart. And then the second one shows it as, shows 2 things. It shows what would be the proposed cumulative spending on the street, water, and wastewater shown in the bar chart. And then the red, it just shows that, okay, per the financial assumptions made that were given to the CMAQ committee, they were told, and I followed this as a guide to try to plan for 3 different tranches of bond issuance. The first, and I didn't separate this by street and utility. I kind of lumped them together for simplicity. But the bond election was for about 4.4 million for streets and 12.2 million, I think, for utilities. So this plan respects those boundaries. But we were assuming 3 tranches, one in 2026 for 3 million, one in 2028 for 5 million, and another one in 2030 for 8.6 million. And as you can see, mostly with one minor exception, 2029, it for the most part follows those tranches. Now, I'm just going to state these tranches were just based on estimated future AV growth, and this will be evaluated annually. So those tranches could change. And we propose that every year we revisit the CIP plan and we adjust these projects as we go along to, first of all, stay in line with what you can actually get for funding. And secondly, as we do these projects, we're going to be able to refine our cost estimates. We'll be able to see, oh, okay, you know, a wastewater project in Blanco just tend to cost about X dollars. So that might be a little more, a little less than I estimated. So we'll refine it each year. But this is your first kind of projection with some projects. So that's really what I came to present on. Do you want to add anything, Warren, before I ask for any input?
No, I think you did a really good job. There was, I think, one. No, I lost it. Oh, yeah, the 2024A CO is not in there. There's a sewer project that you're working on right now on the north side.
Yes, and I didn't include that because I consider it like we're trying to get that essentially constructed this year. It'll overlap in the next year some, but the bulk of the expenditures are this year. So then the plan shows 2026 and beyond, but if you want me to put some dollars in, I can do that. That doesn't, it's fine with me, but that's why you're not seeing that one.
And the only other thing I'd say is on the 2024 projects, separately, which SPI is not really working on, that's our Dura, the former engineer. Survey is complete on 9th Street, Cielo, and we are now working on the survey on Palomino that should be done at the end of the month.
Thanks for putting this together. Certainly a plan from which to deviate.
Well, I know, I will throw in, because I agree, like it's a 30, what I got in the packet was a 30-page, very comprehensive. But that is something I'm going to be finishing up and putting into your official plan. Because it's good to have, like, I'll put the CliffsNotes stuff at the beginning, so it's easy to follow. But those breakdowns are very useful for, as you go forward, it helps you see, okay, we're estimating this much engineering, this much construction admin. It gives you more data, you can zoom in more. You'll still see those in the capital improvement plan, but at the beginning, I'll have more of the overview. Yeah.
And I'll add that adopting the CIP eventually will really help us. They'll help show what your rate, your INS rates are going to be. It'll also establish possible doing impact fees, and it'll really set the table for what we're doing in the future. So this is a really important first step, and I think John did a fantastic, he and the staff did a fantastic job, along with our capital improvement management committee. They obviously got the ball rolling.
I couldn't have even done this if it wasn't for their work. So, otherwise, any questions or feedback? Still up here? Exciting.
When you say relatively inexpensive.
You mean like just a smoke testing?
Yeah.
Oh, like $75,000 to do the whole system, which.
Okay, I just wanted.
He's saying it's cheaper than the other option that would give you similar information.
Okay.
Yeah, way cheaper. Like you can get your whole system with smoke testing and get the problem areas first. Whereas like if you were to, do all the TV at once. But anyhow, yeah. I always, to be honest.
That's a very nice.
No, it's, to me, if it's under 100,000, I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
I just needed to type that dictionary.
Yes. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Does anybody else? Okay. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of resolution 2025 R-00X declaring certain personal property surplus and authorizing sale.
Thank you, Mayor. So let me, I think I'd sent this to you earlier in the day, or actually yesterday. I apologize for the late entry on this. One of the things that council had talked to me about earlier in the year is, when I first got here, I sold a lot of vehicles. There's a lot of equipment, old equipment from years and years ago, they're still sitting around. And so what I did was send to you a list Actually, I'll see if I can pull it up, but before everybody else, but there's a list of basically things that we to salvage before we sell it. And the idea is to auction it off, but I will go ahead and just list what those items were that we're looking at.
One, the police department, three seniors.
No, so I said you actually, that's public works. You actually look at the second page,
No.
you look at the second page, there are two Tahoes, a 2015 Chevy Tahoes, and a 2013 Ford Taurus, right?
You got the wrong list.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
yellow,
he's got a 2018 Chevy Tahoe and a 2017 Chevy Tahoe.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
police department. The two in tan are the ones that are.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So those are the ones that you would salvage, and then this other list on the first page was that Damon and Danny put together. There are 3 scooters, and there's a question about chipper. We'll get to that in a minute. The patching machine and 1996 backhoe. So the chipper shredder is not working now. It is also true that it probably would take a lot to get it to work. But Infomark in their contract does not do chipping services. And so the danger or whatever. And then we had to use it for quite a while.
Yeah, I think the one that we have isn't up to the code.
is it at Cherry Street? Is that what Chipper
No,
is?
this is underground, wastewater plant. And it seems like there was more stuff up there.
That's what they gave me. And we can always look and try to find more things, but there's.
Yeah, and has anybody been to Second Street?
Anyone who's been to Second Street? Oh,
Second
Cherry.
Cherry,
I've physically been to Cherry and actually looked for it.
I looked at whatever's there.
Well, I have, but it's been a bit. The Chipper was there at one point. Maybe they moved it.
Unless we have 2.
What I did is I looked at a spreadsheet on assets and I checked the asset versus what they told me they're all there. So I know that everything that they told me are there. There may be a few things that are not on this list. But we are getting towards trying to get rid of all this
I think it's
stuff.
wonderful. I think that's
So
wonderful.
this is appreciated more.
I would like to take another physical look at that again.
Sure, we can do that.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah. No, yeah, thank you for bringing this up. I think this is good.
Yeah.
Like you said, we've got assets that are out there just losing value, by the year. So, yeah, I don't know if we vote on this now or we wait until we maybe see if there's a more comprehensive list just to make sure. I don't know if it matters.
If
on
it
timing,
pleases
but
the council, we can wait till July and then also provide.
Maybe I'll
you-
approve these and then do another
Yeah.
resolution. If there's more in July. Whatever y'all want.
There you are.
Can we add that resolution?
No.
Oh, okay.
Don't complicate things. I just paid an executive.
I made that up, didn't
You didn't get the resolution.
I see we handle business on the stuff we got, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to motion that, on new business item number 9, that we approve resolution 2025 R-R-006X, declaring certain personal property surplus and authorizing the sale.
Second time.
All in favor? All opposed? Passes. Yay. That's that paper something. Yeah. More, I think we're talking to Austin Company too about.
Yeah. Yes, and I'll send you that information with the council. We're working with a company that could do that and accredited. I'll send that to you.
And I believe they don't charge anything until they sell it and we make money and then, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, consideration, discussion, and take possible action on city communications with TechDOT planning or Highway 281 really first. I personally have reasons that this needs to be tabled probably. Or either taken into executive session. Either one.
I don't have an objection. Tabling it, as we probably discuss it. I mean,
It's the mayor's pleasure. I'll move that we table this item.
Give any like clarity to it, because I think there's some people in the crowd that came for this item, so just figure if there's any little information for them to like better.
I mean, it's nothing about text, it's something that has to do with confidence. That has to do with text. But it has nothing to do with writing. I mean, there's a new administration. I think writing another letter would be fine, but something needs to be clarified first. I can't say that out loud.
You be coming out of executive session and talking about it further? Is it something you can say afterward?
I still can't say that about the one thing.
Can I make a recommendation? If you get some proceeds from the sale of that surplus and you reinvest it in some cushions for these chairs, they're getting awful.
You know, I've seen those things on TV that you can.
Well, the item's tabled, if you vote to do so. It's not on the executive session agenda, so we'll have to take it up some other meetings. But if you vote to table, it's tabled.
So to clarify, that we will not come out and take any action.
Correct. There's nothing to take an action on. It's not being, unless you vote, you're just tabling it, it's not, you're done. If you're recessing from the item to go into executive session, you can come back out and take some action because there's something that qualifies under executive session rules. And once I know what it is, I can tell you back there.
Okay,
It is. But, so either way, I mean.
In the meantime, is there something that any of us could be doing in the next 30 days if it is going to be tabled to the following month? Since we're all in, it's a mystery of what.
Can I ask you?
Pardon?
Can I ask you to trust me?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I trust you.
And as soon as I can open my mouth about it, I will. I have never been shy about opening my mouth.
It wasn't something I did.
No, it isn't. You know about it by now. So is it tabled?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna table it, or take it to.
Did you vote on?
No, we did not.
Okay, there's a motion and
Just for clarity, Madam Mayor, your preference is to table it tonight as opposed to recessing and taking it into.
We can recess it and take it.
So there's something fruitful that could happen, but these folks are going to.
Probably not. But I mean, I can let council know.
it's just, if your motion stands, I'll second. What's your withdrawing the motion?
No, if
No,
the
no.
mayor is happy with it being tabled, the safety committee, then the
Yeah.
motion stands.
All in favor? Opposed? Now we go to item 11, which is the consent item. One consent item. The approval. The non-voting sign. Because I wanted to thank every one of them. They were tasked in my estimate, they were tasked with information.
I think that's an incorrect.
That's my interpretation.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was wondering where this came from. I had a real problem with this until, so that explains why this ended up. It shouldn't have been on the consent agenda, but even just brought up because it seems like they can switch to the voters. Because this bond committee was specifically designed to give to the people we could call on or trusted many of them in the construction business. As these bond funds are spent, to make sure that we don't go over budget, make sure that the fiduciary responsibility and has some financial oversight of the bonds. So it was primarily my understanding CMAQ was educated the public about how to vote. The bond committee was assisting with that, but in the city's formal communication prior to the election in the paper, it says a bond oversight committee has been, or oversight, sorry, the oversight committee has been formed, made up and had, it mentions all the bond, Dennis Moore Senior, Sidney Cox, Kenny Fuller, Paul Granberg, Danny Bali, Harvey Lindemann, and representatives from CMAQ and City Council, and will oversee how funds are spent. And so this is a standing committee. They don't meet monthly, but anytime we're going to spend the public's money and sell bonds, these guys could be called to say, let's have some oversight. So this is not, so I have concerns that the bait and switch thing is going to be seen by the public. But we said we're going to have an oversight committee of people you trust. We're spending your money wisely. And here we are one meeting after the election and we're stopping the oversight.
Okay, it was my interpretation that they were in charge with getting it passed.
Well, we can't do that as a city, but they were going to assist with the education of.
Yes, they were the education part of it. And so then I wanted to take applications for a new bond committee that would be the financial overseers.
When
Because
we decide to sell some bonds, we could certainly call on these same folks or see if there's relationships or take applications.
yeah, I want to open it up for applications because these guys may be able to be on a different committee with me. Their talent may be able to be used somewhere else right now, and then they can come back and apply and get on this one.
I would say I still have concerns about the bait and switch that's going to be perceived in the public. So wait a minute, you're dissolving the oversight. And from what I understand from the engineer's presentation, we don't need to seat that committee for another year or so. And so, but to put out in public that we asked you to vote for this because you can trust us, because we got these people are going to be given us oversight, and now we're eliminating the oversight and going to seat somebody in the future. Go ahead.
Can I make a suggestion? Because I think there's some confusion about your objectives, Mayor, which are plausible and realistic and reasonable, and the point that Councilman Audinec is making. What I might suggest to you, because you're intending for some committee to exist.
Yes.
But that new applications be taken.
Because I don't believe applications were taken.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. That was, we spoke briefly about this today. I'm wondering if you want to perhaps table this subject to next meeting, next month, or 2 months, whatever time frame you want. And then subject to a meeting in the future and a request that the current members reapply if they want to stay on, and ask anyone else in the community that wants to apply. And then whatever ends up at your next meeting, you either reestablish the same people if they're still interested, or add more or whatever. But in any event, the continuity is going to be there. So long as
I would certainly support that. I just think we need an oversight committee.
Absolutely.
And just the optics of just abolishing all oversight on how the people was not kind enough to vote for the bonds. I really think we need that. We need that vote.
And that was my interpretation.
And I do also believe, Tim, to your point, that there's no work for them to do for the next 6 to 9 months anyway. So we've got time to see the committee. To just abolish the committee tonight, I think it's just a bad message.
Councilmember, you referenced a statement. I read the minutes from the meeting where y'all adopted.
Now, this was, what I read was published in the paper. I've got some extra copies.
This was written by the editorial board.
Well, it was by OJ and the mayor at the time, and it was run by council, that team of group. Explaining the need for
Right, I do recall.
I've got the, I'm highlighted on the second page is where it specifically mentions the bond committee, we have an oversight committee, and they're gonna basically police the bonds. I don't have the exact verbiage that you do on the second page.
I mean, obviously, there's some minimal community members listed there. Yes, I mean, if there's work to be done.
Yeah, they're gonna oversee how the funds are spent. And make sure we're not overpaying for this project versus that project. And I think I've got votes because people had to put in an element of fiduciary trust. So that we're taking care of the money.
This is, consideration will take possible action on creation of bond committee and bond election procedures, fund restoration, replacement of water and wastewater, street infrastructure, council discuss, that community bond oversight committee information, from there presented 7, proposed bond and that's what we voted on.
Mayor, I've got this here as communication that was printed in the paper.
Well, I'm just going by minutes.
Yeah, that yellow highlighted section is the one that was shared with the public. Yep.
I missed that one. I wasn't meaning to do a bait and switch because I think we absolutely.
I think he.
Excuse me,
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was not meaning to do a bait and switch. I said this is how I had it interpreted. And right, and that job was done. Yes, we needed one to do for financial oversight.
I fully believe you on that. Today, when I talked to Tim about this, we both shared that this may be a miscommunication of what was the purpose of the bond committee. And so I fully believe you had good intentions.
I like that idea.
I don't think there's any question about the existence of the committee. The question
No, we
is-
need it.
It's a question of
But I think applications.
applications
There
was no
qualifications.
council, it was approval of those names, but there was no application process in that. I applaud that idea. I would recommend it, along with keeping the committee.
Yeah,
Very much
I mean,
so.
and that's more transparent than, that's being transparent. In my eyes.
No. Madam Mayor, was it your pleasure that we're tabling this evening, or would you like a motion?
We can. We can, motion.
You offer?
No, it's something that we tabled this item for a month, the bond oversight committee for, and in a month we revisited possible retooling. That's exactly what we're doing.
Okay. The retooling.
Well, that'd be part of any future motion system.
Yeah.
You taking applications right away or after the
I
next?
think we take applications right away.
Yeah.
So,
That's, yeah. Do you want to hear a second? All in favor? All opposed or abstaining? It hasn't. With, I'm sorry, with a little confusion, but it has. And I think it's it's good, it's a good thing.
Well, it's similar to Wisconsin.
Just kind of pass them. Oh. So where are we? Now. 8:05 into executive session.
Yes.